After a long delay, finally, the Oceania World Cup qualifying has been decided how it is going to work out, and that is very exciting for a New Zealand fan like myself, a New Zealand team who have for the first time in quite a while won a little string of games leading into that OFC qualification. However, there's a little bit of an interesting scenario about this upcoming tournament held in Qatar in March, and that is that it starts a week before the FIFA international window actually starts. So what that means is most professional players might not be available for the All Whites team for this upcoming tournament, at least the start of it, the group stages of OFC qualifying, which means New Zealand might be forced to pick a squad of entirely amateur players for the first week or so of this tournament. So today, in this Football Manager 2022 experiment, I am going to take over as New Zealand manager, replacing Danny Hay, and we will see what we can do for the first initial stages of OFC qualifying with a team more or less known as the Amateur Whites. Hello everyone, and welcome to this experiment video here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well. If you like the look of this video, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on it. Let me know any more experiment things you would like me to do. Any good ideas I will take into consideration for future videos like this. But today we are focusing on my home nation, New Zealand, and how they could potentially get through this little tricky situation which they could be faced at the start of Oceania qualifying. They should still be able to get through it because we're quite a strong nation compared to the other teams in Oceania, especially at the group stage, which is where we're probably going to have to rely on these amateur players more so until the likes of Chris Wood, Sarpreet Singh, Libero, Kakache, and the rest can officially come in from their international clubs and do the knockout stages of those OFC qualifiers, and hopefully we get through those and can play the fourth team out of CONCACAF and maybe sneak our way to our first World Cup since South Africa. But on screen at the moment, we have got the official confirmation on the New Zealand football website. You can see there, it starts in Qatar. It's going to run from the 14th of March to the 30th of March, but the window does not open until the 21st of March. So that is why there's a little bit of doubt as to whether the likes of Chris Wood, Sarpreet Singh, Libby Kakache, to name a few, whether they'll be available for this team for the first week or so. And it does mean there could be a few interesting selections that Danny Hay does spring for this New Zealand team, a team which could be, instead of the All Whites, the Amateur Whites. So if we go over to the Football Manager game now, you'll see what the current New Zealand team, if we were going to pick it exactly like Football Manager thinks we should, looks like. And what you will notice is that there is only one player who is non-professional in this team, so we are going to have to pick a pretty much entirely new team, Winston Reid aside, because he is currently not at a club, so that's quite useful. We still want to have better centre-backs in the nation available for this upcoming OFC qualifiers, provided he doesn't sign for a club by the time that March does roll around. But you can see in game here pretty much all of the players are contracted to professional clubs. So what I'm going to do is try and figure out a way to pick as best of an amateur team as I can. If we go and have a look at the tactic, you can see it's a pretty strong team, especially in comparison to Oceania. It's a very strong team. This team would more or less wipe the floor with most nations in our region, but without some of these names, things could get a little bit more interesting, and also probably have to play a little bit of a different style of what Danny Hay usually would have done in the most recent internationals that we have played, just because we are expected to win these games, and that's not a situation New Zealand usually finds itself in footballing wise. So what we are going to do is go over to the national pool, see what players are valued at £0 are at amateur clubs, and we will come back and run you guys through the team to get us through the group stages of this OFC qualifying and try and see if the Amateur Whites can get the job done so that the real All Whites can come in and complete the job for OFC World Cup qualifying. And we are back a few weeks later in game. You will notice these qualifiers in Football Manager are happening in June 2021. Couldn't figure out a way to make it happen where it actually does in real life, but we're just going to work with what we've been given here, and we have picked pretty much it is an amateur team. You'll see there that Winston Reid has been picked up by Dynamo Kiev, but we've just ignored that because in real life he hasn't, so we're sort of just ignoring what Football Manager's done there with Winston Reid. He's the only professional player who we have got in this team, and you will see quite a few unfamiliar names, no doubt, to some of you who do have some of an idea about New Zealand football. Some of you will recognise some of these names. They have played for the All Whites in the past, but for the most part, these are entirely amateur players. So we're going to run you guys through this team quickly, run you guys through the tactic, because we've had to come up with something, as I said, a little bit different to what Danny Hay would usually play based on what I've seen from the New Zealand team recently, just because we are going to be expected, even with these amateur players, to be favourites for most of these games in World Cup qualifying, and from there we will sim through the group stage and see how this team gets on, or whether it's going to be something which could be quite costly for New Zealand's chances of advancing to the World Cup in Qatar next year. And this is what our squad looks like in this tactic that we are going to use, and you compare the star ratings to what we had previously. It's not very good apart from the defense. So what we're going to do is run you guys through this squad very quickly. First off, our starting goalkeeper is from Western Suburbs, and that is Keys Sims. He's got 1.5 star current ability, a little bit of potential, 18 years old, so definitely is one for the future. I think he's already involved in one of the youth teams. I think that's where we picked him up from when we did do the selection for this team. But goalkeeping wise, there are 3 quite similar options, and Keys Sims does look the best of them, so here's going to be our starting goalkeeper. For the amateur whites, our defence is actually the strongest area, as you would expect, with Winston Reid still holding a position in this team due to his status in real life. At right back, we have got Jalen Rodwell. He is contracted to Fencibles, which, if we have a look at them, because I'm not exactly sure where they are from, they are actually in New Zealand somewhere, so that's cool. They're somewhere in one of the divisions, and he is from Fencibles. So Jalen Rodwell is going to be our starting right back, and also cover centre back, but is apparently our best right back option again. 1.5 star rated, so big drop off from what we'd usually have for a New Zealand team there. We make our way to centre back. These are where the big guns are. There's Winston Reid. You know all about him, the former West Ham man. He got released from his contract. Is probably going to be picked up by a club before that March window does roll around, so he could be unavailable, but for the purposes of when I'm filming this experiment, he is available, and we are going to make the most of it. So he is no doubt going to be captain for our team. Hopefully his body can get through these quick fire games without too much hassle. That's the big concern with Winston Reid at 32 years old, quite injury prone, is our captain for this squad. His centre back partner is a player who I actually thought was retired, but apparently in game he isn't, and that is Andrew Durante. Recently had a spell at Western United in the A-League after leaving the Wellington Phoenix. He's a decent player. He goes alongside Winston Reid quite nicely. Our centre backs do look quite good considering the pool that was available to us. 3-star current ability. He's 39 years old, still has 9 pace, which isn't terrible. I've seen a lot worse on this year's game, especially in my current save at Volsungur, where we are doing an Icelandic build donation. If you want to check that one out, I'll leave a link to it above my head in the top right corner. We've just started season 3 and have made our way up to the top tier and have Conference League qualifying this upcoming season as well, so things are about to get interesting in that Build a Nation challenge. But our centre back starting wise do look quite strong for this amateur whites team. And out at left back we have Robbie Sabo, another player from Western Suburbs, 18-year-old who has 2-star current ability, could be a player for the future, and he will earn his first New Zealand cap in this amateur whites team. We make our way to the midfield. A few so-so options here, but what we have started off with is Ollie White in the defensive midfield role. 21-year-old, he's got 4 under-20 caps, 3 goals, so as a player who can score, but we're going to be playing him in the DM role. 2-star current ability, could go up to 4-star, looks like a decent option. Might be a player who gets a little bit on the fringes of that New Zealand team in the future. The player from Miramar Rangers in this amateur whites team, he is starting in the DM role. Alongside him is a former all-white, Matthew Redenton, the 25-year-old, currently without a club. History-wise, you will see he did have a spell at the Wellington Phoenix. He's been around the A-League, but is currently not at a club, and we are making the most of that. He comes into our midfield. 2.5-star rated, not much room to grow on that, but good solid option considering what we did have available for us on an amateur level. You can see he does previously have 6 all-white caps, so that is a little bit of an international experience which could prove quite useful for this qualifying. Alongside him in the Mazzala role for this 4-3-3 that we are using is Leon van den Hoven. He has got 6 under-20 caps, the Auckland United midfielder, and he has got a few decent attributes there. 2-star current ability, 3-star potential. He is going to be the other starting midfielder to round out that midfield three. And then we get up front, out on the right wing, we have Alex Grieve. He is from Birkenhead, a team who has won the Chatham Cup in recent history. 2.5-star current ability and potential. Can also play up front, so could be a player quite useful out on that right wing. He is going to be starting for us as the winger. Alongside him out on the other side is Dan Morgan. He's quite a versatile player, can play up either side. 30 years old, so brings a bit of experience to what is mostly quite a young team for these amateur whites. 2.5-star current ability and potential as well, so he's going to be starting for us out on that left hand side. And up front to round off the starting 11 for these amateur whites is Maya Bevan, 24 years old, from Auckland City, so probably one of the biggest clubs in amongst this list of these amateur players. A regular star for them, has already had 6 New Zealand caps and has scored 2 international goals as well. 24 years old, little bit of potential at 13 finishing, could be quite useful against these Oceania teams. So that's what our starting 11 looks like, looking at the rest of the team. And behind that, on our bench, we have Scott Morris as a backup goalkeeper, Stunger in defence. We've got Randall, who can play on the right hand side, and up front we've got Kane Vincent, again winging striking option. Quite an elder statement amongst the squad, but could be useful off the bench. Campbell Strong's quite a promising midfielder that I used in my Hexagon challenge at Hamilton Wanderers last year. He is one who could do a decent job for us in the midfield, as is Oscar Howe. Monty Patterson is a good wing striking option, and behind Maya Bevan we've got Chris Naker as a backup wing back. Djurkovic is a backup midfielder. Ryan Fuetz is currently in Europe, but we've been able to get him for this as he is an amateur player. Has spent quite a bit of time in New Zealand over the last few seasons, now finds himself in Europe as a 2-star left winger come striker. Good bench option for us there. Corbin Piper as one of our other backup centre backs, and an extra backup goalkeeper in Regan Diver. Not much between those 3 goalkeepers that we do have in this amateur whites team, but you can see there it's a rather large drop off from what we did previously have with that more or less fully professional all whites team. We're going to be playing a 4-3-3 vertical tiki-taka system that we did use in our beta save with Tottenham. I think it kind of suits the way that Danny Hay does want his teams to be playing, while also being quite aggressive in these games where New Zealand are going to be expected to be favourites to get out of their OFC qualifying group before the professional players can come in and finish off the job. So we'll see how these players do react to this tactic. Hopefully, despite being amateur, they'll be able to cope with it fairly well. And if we have a look at the group that we have been drawn in game for these OFC qualifiers, it is Fiji, Papua New Guinea, Tahiti and Vanuatu. Comparing that to what we've got in real life, it's only missing New Caledonia, who do find themselves in the other group. Fiji and Papua New Guinea are in the same group as us, just the 4-team group for the OFC qualifiers in real life. But we'll see what these amateur whites can do in this group. Obviously, New Caledonia probably would have been the most difficult opponent for us in the group in real life, but in this one, we should be able to make our way through it, but it is a little bit hard to tell with these amateur players. So what we'll do is we'll start simming the games and we'll come back, show you guys highlights from those and see how these amateur whites do get on. Okay, so we've made our way halfway through the Oceania qualifying. Unfortunately, Jalen Rodwell has picked up an injury, pulled ankle ligaments. So that means that we have had to call in a new player to the amateur whites, and that is Birkenhead's Jackson Woods. He comes in as an extra backup wing back, 1.5-star current ability, 2.5-star potential for the 19-year-old, so he gets a potential international cap in these upcoming games. But we've played a few games to start off the group stage of OFC qualifying, and we did start off with a game against Papua New Guinea. Sabo was making his way down the left-hand side around the half-hour mark, puts it in for Morgan into Alex Grieve, and he gets the first goal for these amateur whites, and only a few minutes later we made it 2-0 with Andrew Durante with a really nice strike there from the edge of the box almost. So that's an interesting goal from the centre back to score. Unfortunately, Papua New Guinea did get a goal back late in this game, but we did pick up a win in our first game, an important win. It was a game that we did dominate, albeit XG doesn't suggest that, but we pick up a 2-1 win to kick off the qualification group stage. And next up for us, it was Fiji, and at about the 65-minute mark, we did get the first goal in this game. Andrew Durante picks up his second goal of the tournament with a header there from a set piece, and then in injury time we did wrap up the job. Monty Patterson being slowed through nicely there and just puts that on the wrong side of the goalkeeper, and we make it 6 points from our first 2 games after that 2-0 win against Fiji prior to that injury to Rodwell. So off the back of this, you can see there stats wise, really good performance. So we'll make that change with Rodwell going out of the squad for Jackson Woods, and see if we can hold on to first spot and get our way out of this Oceania World Cup qualifying group. And back, having finished the last 2 games of this OFC World Cup qualifying group stage with these amateur whites, the first of those 2 games was against Tahiti. Took us until around the 33-minute mark to open the scoring through Maya Bevan. He gets another New Zealand goal to make it 1-0. Took us a wee while to get the second goal in this game. Ball over there from Howe to Patterson. He whizzes the ball into the mixer. It's a forced save from their goalkeeper, forced to Maya Bevan, who tucks it away nicely. And we do go 2-0 up with only 10 minutes left. And then a free kick from Patterson himself. Really nice one, that into the top left corner. And we pick up a pretty comfortable 3-0 win there. Probably as you would expect against a team like Tahiti, especially considering that they did pick up 2 red cards in that game. And then we took on Vanuatu in the last group game before the professional players could join this tournament in real life. A little bit of a messy ball in there from Sabo. It falls to Maya Bevan, who strikes there nicely on the volley at the 5-minute mark to give us a 1-0 lead. And then at the 24-minute mark, we get a penalty, which Bevan puts away. So he's on a nice little goal scoring run at the end of this tournament. Unfortunately, about 5 minutes before halftime, they did get a goal back here. Did Vanuatu. Timatua holds the ball up nicely. Our defenders can't quite get in the way of that shot from Tangi. They do pull a goal back, but luckily we held on for the remainder of the second half. Another dominant performance, as you would expect from a New Zealand team in OFC qualifying for the World Cup, and we pick up a 2-1 win, and the amateur whites do go through the group stage undefeated. So despite the concerns that New Zealanders might have about how this team is going to go about their professional players in this upcoming World Cup qualifiers in March, it does look like New Zealand does have the quality to still get out of the group, albeit we were missing New Caledonia for this one with how things were drawn in Football Manager, but we did go unbeaten, 4 wins from 4, 9 goals for, 2 goals against, perfect 12 points. So New Zealand, hopefully with a team like that, with an amateur team, still will be able to make their way through to the knockout stages of the OFC qualifying before the professional players like Chris Wood, Sarpreet Singh, Libby Kakache and the rest can join up with the team, and hopefully from there they can do the rest. Having a quick look at the squad to see the players who did perform best out of these amateur whites. The top goal scorer was Maya Bevan. He picked up 4 in his 4 appearances. Monty Patterson got 2 off the bench, so good impact from him. Andrew Durante up there with 2 goals, which is very interesting to see, especially the first one of those that he did score without having to use his head or from a set piece. And the other goal scorer was Alex Greaves. Those goals coming mainly through attacking players, as you would expect. In terms of assists, highest assist makers were Dan Morgan and Ollie White. They both picked up 2 assists, while Grieve and Vandenhoven also picked up assists. And in terms of the highest average rating for a player who did play regularly for us, you can see Chris Nyka was quite good for us off the bench there with a 7.9 in his 3 appearances. But for the main starting players, it was indeed Maya Bevan with his goal a game. Unfortunately, if he did that in real life, I still think Chris Wood would probably be sending him home once they got past the group stages, but it's a good problem to have if this is what happens in real life, like it did here in this Football Manager experiment. So in terms of whether an amateur team can get New Zealand through to the knockout phases of the OFC World Cup qualifying, the answer, according to Football Manager, is indeed yes. So that does it for today's little experiment video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it. If you did, then remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you did enjoy this one and want to check out everything else here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. Let me know down in the comments any other experiments you guys might like me to do, or any simulations with any teams who you guys would like me to do who might be struggling in the real world of football at the moment. And until the next time I see you, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.